Here we go again.
Hey, yeah, twice a week, back at it. It's beautiful. I mean, it's so cool here right now. I think I had a jacket on this morning. Can't get a perfect weather outside to run. It's August 14th. It's 2025. Welcome, everybody. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 869.
Yeah, it's a lot of episodes. Yeah, man, it was. I had a hoodie on.
It is a lot of episodes.
I had a hoodie on. I took it off, ripped it off, and went for a sup board this morning, shirtless.
Ooh,
perfect weather.
How many do you do that shirtless, or do you keep the hoodie on when you get in the water?
It depends. This morning it was sunny and warm enough. I took it off, but a lot of times I'll wear a hoodie. That's my favorite. Like in September.
Oh yeah,
kind of hoodie, just roll up the sweats.
So I mean, before we get into like the nitty gritty of the topic for today, got a lot of racing coming up. You got Louisville 70.3 this weekend. We know it's gonna be warm, big deal. Pro race. You got Wisconsin, Chattanooga, Maryland, California. I mean, you got big races falling here right and left. But before we get to that, most importantly, what's the average age in the neighborhood you live in?
My neighborhood?
Yeah.
I'd say probably 50-ish.
Okay, that's what I'd imagine. How many? Because then you got e-neighbors, you got the neighborhood Facebook chat. How many 50, probably even 40s, 40 to the 60-year-old, maybe the stay-at-home moms have their own little group chat, and when you roll out there on the paddle board and the sup board and you take your shirt off, they just the group chat just starts firing up. Be like, he's back. He's out again. They take the coffee up. They're like, hey, babe, I'm going to go out on the deck and have a cup of coffee and, enjoy the view. And then next thing you know, you got just binoculars, you got telescopes, and there you are in all of your glory, just supping on your way through, thinking you got a lot of quiet time and peacefulness. But really, you're just, you're jiving with the old Golden Girls that are peering out over the deck, enjoying their morning cup of joe.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think they more think I'm nuts. I think I told you a story about building the sauna with my older neighbor. He was he fell over and he was yelling at me and shit. And then I was out plunging one day, this in maybe the winter, fall, or some late fall, and he was up on the. I go, hi, good morning, Tom. He goes, Michael, you're fucking nuts. So I think it's a little bit more of that, but also a lot of people really don't live here. So the weeks like this or during the week, it's pretty nice because nobody's really around. So I'm sure there's a few curtains pulling back going, he's out there again.
Hey, there he goes again, ladies. He's back out.
It's not the ladies. I got a big gut hanging over and unkempt.
I love it. But yeah, it's hey, listen, it's a great time to be outside. It's great. School's back. Thank God Almighty. I mean, it's I told Hayden yesterday, he's back to school.
Jesus.
I said, man, I said, I'll be honest with you, buddy. It's great to see you go, but I'll be just as happy when you come home. But yeah, get out of here. I think I saw more parents out yesterday, doing stuff in the morning than I've seen in the last 2 months. You could tell everybody's in a better mood. It's the first day of real fall when you know it's going to stay, not the fake fall that we get, before 3 weeks of summer. But it's yeah, back to school. Love you, but have a good day. Go learn something. We all get back in some sort of a routine and a schedule, which is honestly if you're in one of these bigger race builds, if you got a race week coming up, it is ideal timing then you got some people whose kids don't go back to school till after Labor Day, which is just a little bit weird to me, but whatever. Everybody does it differently. Big deal. But yeah, you got Louisville 70.3 this weekend. And then really it's just a cascade of events from now until really mid-October. Then you got a little bit of break before the late October, North Carolina 70.3, Ironman Florida month with Cozumel and Arizona. But yeah, so it's full on, and you got athletes. We both coach a lot of athletes doing all different kinds of distances, sprints all the way up to fulls, half marathons, full marathons, and it's I think one of the hardest things about this time of year is it's not, people like to consume, I don't say consume, but they like to, they know they're getting closer to race day. And that usually means a heightened sense of, anxiety, self-doubt, maybe self-criticism. going back and thinking all the stuff that you wish you could have done, maybe spending a little bit too much time in the, in the Facebook group, or, looking on, following your friends on Strava and seeing what they're doing and listening to podcasts, maybe like ours, right? And they're all like, hey, you should do this, and pros are doing 35 hours a week, and, it's all elites are doing this, and you should be, consuming 450 carbohydrates every other minute, for the course of your entire race. And you start to second guess everything. So you go into like distraction mode. And when you do that, you like dive way deep into, honestly, probably all the things that you should be avoiding, which is overthinking all your sessions, overthinking all the things that you should have done, instead of just like getting your mind right in all the areas that you're going to need to have your mind right on race day. Right. Even if like we talked a little bit on Tuesday, like I did a little short rant when I was, adversely affected, by that Facebook post. And I, had a few statements that were unbecoming of my usual vibe, but, that you kind of know, right? But let's just use Wisconsin, for example, because it's like one of the bigger races, after Louisville that's coming up. And you don't know what that's going to be like. You don't know what the water temp's going to be like, and so what you can do to prepare for something like the rut is like, we say, we like to talk about getting out of your own head, but really, like, I think it's important to stay, kind of close your circuit on and stay focused and stay in your head. But my point with that is like, make sure you're thinking about the right things, right? Because I think right now the point is to go through like all the details that actually matter, that you have a control over, not the ones that people are, gaslighting you with or trolling you with, or like making a big deal out of, the loudest voices in the car, like that kind of thing. Like, go through all the stuff that you have control over, right? Do I have my nutrition nailed down? Do I need to go through like, X, Y, and Z scenario on race day to know that I feel comfortable doing that? Not, again, I think that's the biggest thing. Most people just plan for like one or two. They plan for best day ever. And then when they don't see that, they panic, like, oh, I thought Louisville was going to be my PR for the year, and now it's going to be, it's going to be warm. And so now I'm panicking, and now I don't know what to do. But like, I think the more that I remember doing that from like a really, really young age. Like when I was swimming year round, I think from ages like 8 and up, the closer and closer we would get to the meet, we would I remember the coach before practice would take us over in like this hallway and turn off the lights. And then he kind of walk us through like, not meditation, but like visualization was what I'm trying to get to. And I remember he was like, the very first time I ever did this, he like walked through like, hey, walk through like the start of like the morning, like you're waking up, you're having your breakfast, you're feeling good, you're seeing your friends, work through all those emotions, work through like those butterflies of excitement, so he walked you right up through the blocks, all these kind of things. And then I remember this very vividly, like the next one he did, you're like, man, this is great, I'm feeling super awesome. He was like, all right, now the next one, you get up, same thing, get on the blocks, false start. And because, in swimming, if you false start, you're out of, in most meets, you're out of the heat, you're done. Could be the finals, could be the prelims, like you're done. You false start, you're done. And he did it, and he's like, now you false started, your meet isn't over, you still have a race. How do we get back in our head? Like, how do we reframe that into, all right, you know what? I missed this. And how do I kind of pick myself up off the ground to get ready for another event later that day? I can't let that one mistake, that one flaw, that one, thing that I shouldn't have done, that's bad. Everybody saw it. Everybody's staring at you. Like, when you false start, everyone looks at, like, oh, and that person's gone. You get out the pool. It's a real lonely kind of like walk of shame, but you still have more events. How do you not let it affect you? And it's like, I remember him saying, the first thing you do is like, well, now you didn't swim. Yes, it sucks, but now you have more energy for your next event. You didn't swim. So like immediately reframe it into, this is what I can do. This is how I can use this mistake. This is how I can use this mishap in my favor. And I think in endurance sports, like, especially because the days that we do this are like, they're so long, we're going to go through so many emotions, so many, ways we're going to feel physically, mentally, emotionally, that we tend to just like really grab onto really the extreme emotions, like, which is very, I think, representative of society, right? It's very much on the pendulum. Like it's very polarizing one way or the other. Like we often overcorrect. It's the worst or it's the best, it's like the best feeling ever. Now my legs are the worst feeling ever. How am I going to do this? And so I think if you're looking in, you're getting closer, like you got a race this weekend, right? Or you got a race coming up, slow things down a little bit. And if you're going to be in your head, which I think a lot of people do, And I think that's an okay place to be, but you have to take control of the conversation that's going to be going on in that head. Is it panic? If it's not panic, what is it? Like, is it over optimism? And if it is, tone that down too. I'm not saying don't be hopeful and don't be energetic, but I'm saying now is like a great time to start visualizing, let's say race week goes terrible. Let's say I get sick. How do I adapt? Right? How do I overcome? What do I do? How can I, do these things? I remember Wisconsin last year, you and I did it. I guess 9 years ago, he just turned 9. It was like 9 years ago that I remember I'm like feeling like really, really sick. I mean, he was like 6 weeks old. It was already a struggle. I mean, you're like sleeping, Hayden was sleeping like in between us, like, in the hotel room the night before the race. And I remember like just like down in these like immunity shots like all week because I wasn't feeling good. I had a cold and then ended up having like actually like a really, really good race. But I remember thinking like, hey, I'm sick, whatever. And I know before I've had races that have gone well than I have been sick. So again, like, I think it's common to be in your head. I don't think we can tell you to not get in your head because I think we're all going to go there anyway, especially if we're kind of closing our own circle. But I think it's really important to kind of focus on the controllables and those smaller details like, your nutrition, your feeling, and then just write down, like honestly, on a note card, 1 through 5, here are the best times I think I can do, and if they don't happen, here's what I can think, here's what I can feel, here's how I can still make the day a success. And if these things do happen, my goggle leaks, I forget my wetsuit, I forget my, my nutrition up in the hotel room, when I get down to get the transition, I got to go back up and get it, or I get a flat tire, or I have GI issues. Like, don't plan for total ultimate, like 100% success. And I think we all do that because we're afraid of like thinking through what it might be like if we don't have that success. But there's a difference in being afraid of that happening and then also being prepared for all the different things that can happen to us on race day.
Yeah, that's huge, man. That visualization. And we go through a million thoughts in training. And one of the things I try to do is like practice that. Some of these thoughts I just have to let go. It's like, and this is the time, right? When you get closer to your race, this time of year in the summer, you can really talk yourself into some shit. I suck now. I don't have any pop. You're getting tired and all these sorts of things. But one of the things I like to do is when I start feeling like that, I try to do exactly what you said, is sort of like, okay, what happens when I do feel like this in a race? Because it will happen. And a lot of times it's on a grinding, slow climb up to Mount Horeb or something like that at Madison. And you might think that you're just toast, but then, you kind of get over it and then you start getting a little wind at your back and you're going downhill and you're like, wait, I'm back. It's sort of like, how do you manage that roller coaster of emotions and then also recognize when you're in a funk? I mean, I've talked about that swim I had a couple days ago, and at some point, like I don't want to say, you just like I couldn't get it going, right? So one day, at one point, I just stood up on the shore and I said, man, I just got to just chill for a minute, But like in motion, how do you kind of regroup? And you said, I think tone it down a little bit or whatever. I mean, I think it's important to recognize those emotions. If you're kind of grinding hard into a segment that's a real long, into the wind or some other kind of challenge, and you're starting to feel like, oh man, this is not, I don't know if I can sustain this. That's when you just really have to be able to adjust and kind of, get off of in your head, your goal for a minute. And I think things can change if you're paying attention to those sorts of things, and just keep moving along and realize that, yeah, plan B may have to come into effect here, because just because you lose plan A and go to plan B doesn't mean plan A is maybe not resurfaceable, but it's at certain points you have to be aware of that. And I think about that all the time in training, man. It's sort of like, I feel great right now. And then it's like 10 minutes later, I'm like, wait a minute, what just happened? It's sort of like, do I need more fuel? Do I need to just relax my run stride a little bit and figure that out? Because it's like, what are you going to do when that happens? This is what training is for me. I just am always aware of that, because, it's so easy to get confused when maybe you have big bike, and then the next day you go out and run an hour, and you're like, man, I feel like this is how, if I feel like this on race day, well, hopefully
you start doing the math.
Yeah, it really is like, then I start going, wait, I just ran 6 miles. That's like 1/4 if, and so then you got to be, well, what happens when things do turn? How are you going to pull yourself out of it? And I just think that those things are money, because that's the beauty of it. It's sort of like life in a sense. It's a microcosm of life where, one day might kind of suck, but then the next day can just be great. You can have those sorts of changes within a race if you know how to sort of manage them mentally.
As you were kind of walking through that, I remember two things. One is like, because it is so much like training. And I'm trying to do a better job of this. I think it's something that I'm like, it's an area of what they say. It's an area of growth. It's a growth opportunity for you as a coach. Is like, I was talking to another coach a few weeks ago, and he was like, yeah, it's like, I peak in on my athletes training every day, but I used to like, if they immediately felt bad, then I would immediately change like the next day. But he was like, what I didn't give them a chance to do is like, maybe they actually do feel better the next day. Mm-hmm. And, because I think sometimes we can overcorrect when, like, just like you said, like you can have a horrible day one day, and then the next day you can bounce back and all of a sudden feel great. Or it could even be like an AM and PM thing. An AM thing, you're like, God, I feel terrible. Then like the evening, like, man, and you read this comment a ton. As bad as this morning was, tonight was awesome. And like, if you read the early morning when you're like, God, they had a horrible workout, maybe I should just like take the rest of the day off or tone it down. Like, you have no idea how the body's going to respond 6, 7, 8 hours later. I mean, this from personal experience, so do I, but also from our athletes. Like, they see a split run, maybe it's like an hour and a half in the morning, hour and 15 in the evening. 95% of the time, the second run goes better.
Yeah.
And you would think it'd be the total opposite. But it's a second. So like, again, it's training and racing is so much the same in terms of like never predicting how you can feel. And I think that's like part of the trap that I think a lot of athletes find themselves in when they get too much in their head and they start comparing and like whipping out numbers and, my best pool time, I'm doing 126 and I just can't seem to meet that open water. I'm like, well, that's because it's totally different. You're blasting off the walls like a rocket ship in your flip turns. You're taking lots of breaks, and then they take their best wattage ever on a bike ride and their best pace in a long run. They're like, this is what I'm going to race with. And you're like, then you're immediately set up for failure because you're chasing a pace, chasing a time. You're chasing this, unrealistic goal more than likely. And it's funny, right? Because I'm sure people do this, but like, I don't know anybody that checks their time and their pace in the water when they swim. They just do this. Then you do?
Yeah, unfortunately.
What, dude? Don't do that.
No, I mean, like, I know people.
Oh yeah, it's like I just get in and I swim and I get out, and then you have like the result. And the other stuff, you're forced, you're not forced, but like everyone looks at it all the time. I was even like watching the T100 London race this last weekend, and I think Lucy Charles Barkley was about to like, she stormed back from, like second or third, and she came back for the win like on the last lap, and she was maybe, I don't know, a quarter mile from the finish, and had easily left. I think it was Kate Waugh she had pulled ahead of. So it wasn't even in, like, the win was inevitable. And that quarter mile left, you know what she does? Checks her watch. Like, not because she needs to, because it's habit, right? And we do that in racing. And of course, like, the bike's the worst because you got this, we went from making bike computers to be as small as possible. Now they're like, they're freaking the size of iPhones. I mean, like, they're like tablets on your people's bike. Okay. And so now you just stare at it the whole time, instead of just like trying to feel things out. And I think that's where people get in trouble, is they chase this, they get in their heads and start questioning things. But in reality, like, as soon as you get out, honestly, before you get in, like, I think it would be really like a great exercise for each athlete to do, especially as these races get longer and longer, from even the Olympics to 70.3s to fulls. Because you and I both know this from our experience in racing, is like, we've all had a race where we've felt everything from incredible and like, superhuman to absolutely horrific. Like, how am I going to finish?
Yeah.
And the truth is you more likely don't feel like either one of those when you actually cross the finish line. But, the point being is, whether it's a race this weekend or a couple weekends, race the next buoy and then race to the next aid station. That's it. Cut it into chunks. Like, because it is like you come out of the gate on the bike, you might not know you've got a tailwind and you're feeling really good and you're doing 20, 21 miles an hour and you're like, oh, this might be my day. Instead of like, there's a tailwind you don't know about because it's like maybe 10, 12. So you're getting an extra bump there. Your heart rates are, you're like, this is my day. I'm going to do it. And then you take a turn, you go through a couple hills and it drops and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to keep it. So you start working extra hard. You start to like base your whole day off of a glimpse, right? And it's no different than going out on a long run. I mean, I've done this before back when we lived in Nashville out in Hermitage. I go run the Greenway. And like, if I go through like certain sections with like the trees, it might go from like 7:30s to 10:12s because they just can't pick up. And you're like, wait a minute, do I run harder? Because I'm like, no, I'm already running hard. It's at 7:30s. Like, but then you base like your whole run off like not being able to do this or not feeling well, or you see it's because that's all it takes, right? Or you come out of the water. And this is, I think, where it really gets people the most.
Oh yeah.
I know it's happened to you before.
Oh yeah.
You get out of the water and you see an incredible time and you're like, maybe you're 5 minutes ahead and you're like, this is my day.
No, that doesn't happen. It's the other way.
Like maybe I'm going on both ends of the spectrum here. Okay. You're like, you come out 5 minutes earlier. You're like, God, I feel incredible. Like this is my day. I'm already 5 minutes ahead of time. Now you're working off the assumption that now I'm already 5 minutes ahead of time. I either got to keep that or I got to keep adding more things. This could be my day. When for all you know, the course was short. Like you didn't do anything spectacular. Or you come out of the water and you take a look at your watch and you see it all the time. You can see people's faces. The first thing to do is look at their watch. 100%. First thing, watch time. You see they're like, oh, jubilation, or like stoic face, or you see utter disappointment. You're 5, 6, 7 minutes slower than you thought you were going to be, and you feel way more fatigued and drained than you thought. So now that's in your head. Maybe this isn't my day. And like I said, fuck, for all you know, especially when they moved, like using Wisconsin as an example, when they moved like the 1-loop swim to the 2-loop swim, like you had no idea it was going to be that much slower on the second loop because of how much traffic you're going to have. And for all you know, maybe with the courses, because there are just certain courses that are longer and slower than others. Doesn't mean you are having a bad day. It just means this is the day you're having on the course. Remember, it's all, like we don't have control over any of that, and it's the same goes for like, summer running. You don't know and feel the humidity in the dew point. Let's say you don't look at it. You don't really feel it and recognize it for the first mile, but you're like, dude, I'm like heat acclimated. This run is going fantastic. I am fucking crushing it today. And then by the time, like, maybe there's a high dew point and high humidity, you haven't had time for like, you to not get enough oxygen because there's so much moisture in the air and all the breath you take is so saturated. But then after a mile and a half, you like hit the wall and you're like, fuck. But you already overran, right? And so like, again, like coming out of the swim, you have that feeling. It's like it ruins people's days. Now they feel less confident. They feel less fit. Now they feel like the day is gone. And now you're like, how am I going to make it through this whole day knowing my day is already done? In terms of, like meeting a time split or maybe doing a PR, and because all you do is see, it's right on track, or I'm behind or ahead. That's it. That's all people think. And it really does affect, I think, your psyche really in a negative way, regardless. Right? You're either ahead, so you're like, I got to keep going, even though in 30 minutes, it could all change. Right? And it could change one way or the other. But so I think like, only trust how you feel and only try to attack the race, incrementally from buoy to buoy and then a bike aid station. Like, I'm feeling good. Let's just get to the next station. This is how I feel. And you come out on the run, it's a false downhill, and you come out and you're like, God, I feel great. My legs are flying. Like, this is going to be my day. And you just like go all in on that pace, that effort. And then like by mile 3, you're like, oh my God, I'm done. Like I came out way, way too hot. And I think like the less we can allow ourselves to latch on to those immediate feelings and kind of temper the overexcitement or, the feelings of, negativity and failure, like the more you can keep that feeling and be like, all right, this is how I feel for now. I'm going to work with it. I'm going to be smart with it. And then we'll see how I feel in like 15, 20, 30 minutes by the next aid station. And I'm just going to attack it in increments. It might seem like a long day, but I think it's a great way to just keep yourself in check and in the moment and in like certain segments of the race, because it's a long day and things can just, they can change on a dime. Your attitude can change on a dime. Your stomach can change on a dime. The weather can change on a dime. And it's just up to you, right? To be able to adjust how you feel to adapt to the environment and how you feel in an instant.
Yeah.
And if you're not like that, you don't prepare for that, prepare for those scenarios to go in your head, like just like you're training, you're like, I've been here before. I do. And people do spend endless hours, obsessing over, course recons and how's this feel? I know this bump. I know the course at the back of my hand. I've done my open water swims. I've done these long runs. Like, I know how this feels. Yeah. But I mean, like, how are you going to deal with, how are you going to feel with like the rate? Go back through those, like the mental and emotional conversations you have to get yourself up to do a run. Don't remind yourself of the data. Remind yourself of the times where you're like, God, like the warm up felt like shit, but then I absolutely crushed the back end, or I nailed the front end and then I think I went too hard and I ended up like having a really rough day. Remember those moments and like the lessons, hopefully lessons, right? Not the continued mistakes, but the lessons you learn from those, and take that kind of toolbox in a race day, not the Strava segments and the PRs, from data, because you never know what you're going to get. But take those other lessons that you learned, hopefully, and apply them and prepare for them mentally to be able to execute them and adjust on race day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. That's we go through. I mean, I would say probably in training we go through pretty much every race case scenario, at least in some regard. So it's like, you're right. It's like people will have a tough day in training and they'll just try to, throw it away. But I think those are the real learning situations where you can figure out, like, all right, when this happens, what am I going to do about it? Am I just going to throw in the towel, or am I going to figure out a way? And then, as you're talking, the best way for me to kind of articulate these things is personal experience. And that happened, that swim thing you were talking about just flashes me back every time, because that whole double your half time and add an hour to the full kind of formula. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like the generic formula. People say, well, you do a half and this, you double that and add an hour or whatever, and that's your full time or whatever. That got in my head after my first half at Muncie that year. And I was 5:15 for my head half. And then I'm like, okay, Ironman Wisconsin, that'd be whatever, double that and add an hour. So whatever, I had 11:30 in my mind, like, which is crazy going in. I'm like, I'm going to do it. And then I had all these numbers laid out and everything like that. And I think the swim would have had to have been like 1:15 or something like that for me to feel reasonable about it. And I got out and I think it was 1:23. And I remember doing that exact same thing. I just shook my head like, oh man, my day is over. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go crush the bike. That was my thought at first. And I ran up to Helix, got on that bike. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, I got to do this now. I got to really, whatever. And the minute I got to those hills, I'm like, wait a minute. Well, this isn't Muncie. I can't. So I recalibrated kind of, within the first 15, 20 miles of the bike to like a 12-hour goal. And then that's when it all came together, and that's what happened. And so, but I think it's just a interesting lesson, because it is sort of that range thing, right? That you're kind of talking about with, especially your swimming. I'm like, all right, I swim open water all the time, and I know for a fact that these Garmin paces are off, right? I know it in my gut, but I haven't been able to like prove it, scientifically yet. But it still gets in my head, But so now I really just try to focus on, all right, I swam a long ways or whatever, and I got out and I felt good. You just got to kind of take what comes with that, right? It's like we can predict these perfect tri-calc outcomes as much as we want, but the reality of the day is, managing your energy, managing your mind and your thoughts, positive and negative, all the way through, and just getting to the end as best as you can. And that's what it is. You can't, because I think it's real easy to start judging yourself as like it's a failure out there. If you have this thing in your head and all of a sudden you're halfway through an Ironman, you know you're not going to hit that tri-calc goal. And then it's like, oh, I suck. I blew it. What was the point of all, you know what I mean? You get in that thing and then all of a sudden you can, well, I'm not going to get it. I might as well walk a little bit more. And, like I said, I think it was one of our early podcasts and it got a whole lot of feedback, but it was like, if you want to have a good Ironman, just don't walk. So let's just figure that out, get to the marathon and run it, and usually you're going to probably be happy with that result 9 times out of 10, at least a week later, Oh.
I mean,
as much as it hurts.
Like exactly. Like, listen, there's a couple things there. One, I think people can do to like set themselves up for success instead of like inviting, fear and self-doubt and anxiety and all these things like that. I think we do on purpose sometimes, just like, reading a Facebook post, and it's like, it's on you, like it's on you, it's your own fault. But like, just like you should never trust a fart when running, you should never trust your open water swim pace in your Garmin.
Yeah.
Ever.
Boy.
I mean, ever. I mean, here's a pro tip for you guys. When you go out, and I know people, they got to track it because if I don't track it, I can't upload it. I got to put on Strava. Like, I got to track it. What do you mean just go by time? How do you look at the data? Like, just go swim to swim. Don't look at it. Because I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be accurate. It's just not going to be accurate. I can tell you this from personal experience, because I do trust so the only time I've ever been able to actually get like actual feedback. So I did this 2 years ago, Wisconsin 7.3. Maybe it was last year when like I swam the swim course the day before, and I wore 2 watches, and so one watch I synced my form goggles to my Garmin to like show exactly what I was doing. And it was on point, 1.2 miles. The time was on point, and then the other Garmin I was wearing, my distance was longer, because here's the thing about the distance is like the distance was shorter. And so my pace was like, I went from, I think I swam like 128 for the 1.2 on my form goggles that were attached to my Garmin. And the other Garmin, I swam 144s because it didn't pick up the distance the same. And like, just the mindset, if you're like, good God, am I that slow? Like, so like, pro tip, the 2 days before your race, I fully expect and I fully support training, getting in open water, hopping on your bike. I'm telling you right now, do your open water swim without your watch. Just go swim what feels like an 800 or 10 minutes, or swim whatever feels good. Because I'm telling you right now, when you get out of the water, you're not going to like what you see.
Yeah.
And you're like, God, it's so slow out here.
I looked it
just
up.
Feel good.
They tell you to put it under your cap if you really want to. And I was like, man, am I going that far?
And then and if you do, like, if you just want it because you're that person, right? Do it, save it, and immediately delete it so you can't see it anymore. Like, just delete it. Same thing with the bike. Like, if you hop on the bike and you're doing your pre-race warm up in the run, do the power, keep everything off the screen. Don't look at your heart rate. Don't look at anything else, and then immediately delete it, because all it's going to do is get in your head one way or the other. Just cross it off the list. Just check the box, because what if you get in the water and for the first time, you're like, God, I feel so comfortable. This water feels amazing. Like, I feel good in my wetsuit, or, what I did, half wetsuit, half non-wetsuit. I'm good with whatever, and then you see like this drastic change in pace from your wetsuit to non-wetsuit. And you're like, God, now you're panicking. You're like, God, I hope it's wetsuit, because if it's not, I'm be so slow. Like, all these things add up. The same thing with a bike. Like, unless you are fully capable of letting it go in one ear and out the other, and not latching onto it and becoming obsessed with it, ditch it. Just ditch it. Because all it's going to do is make you obsessed with, you're inviting interference to your mindset. And listen, like, even the most strong-willed, resilient, person, they're gonna eventually, like, there's only so much you can withstand. You're gonna end up getting some chinks in your armor. And that's kind of what it is. Like, you can go into every race with this perfect mindset, but also like don't expect yourself to, right? Like, just like we shouldn't expect our bodies to be perfect, and we should go back and forth, with listening to our body on race day. Do the same thing with how you are mentally. Don't kill yourself for being down for a minute, but know what you think you might need to do, right? Whether it's like shift from I'm out here to crush people and take no prisoners to, man, I'm super grateful to be out here today. Like, this is just it may not be perfect, but man, I'm just so thankful for the opportunity to be able to do this when most people, can barely get out of bed without aches and pains and break out in a zone 4 sweat walking to the mailbox. #America. Right? Like, they do things that you're able to shift it and don't expect you to not get down. If you expect to get a little lull mentally and emotionally, especially in those super long days, for an Ironman, you don't get a very good sleep. You're stressed. Your ass gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning or 3:30. You got to get all the stuff done. You're eating, you're already feeling probably not ideal because you probably ate too much pasta the night before. And you're just already not firing all cylinders. And I think when people that last 20 miles of the bike, I think that's when people really start to get hit with the negativity, and they let that creep in because you're starting to not just feel some physical, fatigue and energy loss, but you're also mentally starting to feel a little less yourself, and I think that's and you tell people this all the time when they're hey man, I'm just frustrated with myself because I don't have the motivation to go work out. And I'm like, dude, did you look at your last 72 hours?
Yeah.
You've been insanely stressed out. You got a kid that's sick, your basement flooded. I'm just stoked that you're even thinking about training. So you got to have energy, be motivated. So you're going to have those lulls and those dips on race day. So it's also how do I manage those? What do I need to do to get myself back in a great frame of mind? But I think we get so caught up, right, in the physical, in the performance side of things on race day. And then you see, I'm sure it's you see people all the time, posting how great their every day of training is. They're always motivated. And, you got, the endless, quotes that are, super supportive, even though, you and I both know it's usually a red flag. But you're man, that person is always ready to go. They seem like they always got things going. I was telling an athlete the day, they're hey, how's your weekend? I was like, dude, it's been hell so far. I'm just treading water. I got, back to school, Allie's super sick, and I've just got a lot of stuff going on. I'm just treading. He's like, man, that's actually good to hear. I was like, thanks, dude. He's like, well, it just makes you seem human. And I'm like, dude, everybody's like this. And so I think battling the ups and downs and the emotions that you have is one of the phrases that I learned to really love the most when I was in treatment was because I mean we all do, but alcoholics and those of us that struggle with addiction, we don't always have the right first thought, or we might think something about ourselves and we get mad at ourselves for thinking it, but it was you are not your thoughts. Just because you have a thought or a feeling doesn't mean that is who you are, or you don't just assume that thought or that feeling, nor should you feel shame for having it or feeling it or whatever. I think that's the same thing when you race. If you have a self-doubt, don't immediately go down a spiral of, you're never going to do this. You always, self-critical. Same thing if you think you're you're God's gift to the swim, bike, run. Eventually it's going to come crashing down on you, and so I think again, same thing with the physical feeling, go with the same when it comes to the mental and emotional piece. Don't latch on to those, because the pendulum is going to swing, right? You feel like shit. All of a sudden you swing through an aid station, you get a surprise, goo Roctane with 600 milligrams of caffeine. Well, guess what? 6 minutes later, you're going to be on cloud 9 high as a kite. You're going to be freaking and whiling out, and you're pulling up to people on the bike hey man, how's your day? And you want to chat 500 miles an hour like a crack addict. And then guess what? 20 minutes later when the crash comes, you're going to be like a turtle. It's just going to happen over and over and over and over again. But it's how you are not your thoughts, and maybe you are not your legs, this next 10-mile stretch, or the legs I have right now doesn't necessarily mean the legs I'm going to have later in the day. And so this managing those and understanding that and trying to stay seriously, like straddle that fence as much as you can, be in the gray as much as you can on race day. Like I really think like, until the last, 10K of the full or the 5K of the half marathon part of 7.3, like you shouldn't trust anything. And then I think the longer you do that, the more, not reserve, right, but the more measured approach you can take to the race. Again, you and I both said this, hundreds of times on this podcast. And we've never met anybody cross the finish line. They were like, "Yeah, I got too much left, man."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. I mean, you think they'll care if I like go back and run the course in reverse? I just got a lot left, man. I took the bike too chill.
Yeah, I
really went out just seriously like way too slow in the run. And I brought it home, man. I got way more. Like I might even do like a little PM run here. Like no, everyone's just like, man, I think I overcooked the bike. I think I overcooked the bike. I don't think I swam enough. I may have swam too hard. I think I started out the run too hot. Like that's all you hear. And that, like, again, those are all 100% preventable. As much as we want to bemoan and bitch about Mother Nature doing her thing, on a certain day, like you can't control that. Take control and responsibility and accountability of the stuff that you can control. And you do that, and I promise you, like you will set yourself up for the best opportunity to have the best day.
Yeah, man, I'm just I'm infinitely fascinated by this concept of man, Coach, I felt like ass on that run for the first 2 miles, and then something happened, or even 5 miles, or hour and a half on the bike, or 2 hours. I mean, these are the kind of things that happen all the time in training. To think they won't happen on race day, it's I mean, usually I get out of the water exhausted, and then I get on the bike and I feel like a Superman for the first, like 10 miles or whatever. It's like, man, I haven't really ridden a lot. My legs are just sharp, because I think a lot of it is because you are warmed up from the swim. You're woke. For me, I'm awoke. I'm not woke, but I'm awake, and it's a wild feeling, because then it sort of like hits in reverse a little bit out there on the bike. But yeah, that idea of not really buying into it, and I like what you said about living in the gray, because it's sort of like, just because I feel like this doesn't mean I'm going to always feel like this. And how do I figure out how to get out of it? And for me, sometimes, you can come out and feel like flat, and that can be, you might have tapered well, you might be nice and rested, and you just feel flat. Well, I think like, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll try to, force it. And, we've done that on rides and stuff before in the past, and where it's like, man, I got to wake my ass up a little bit, because sometimes I'll get into like I know I have something in me, but it's just like, it's like getting up. Some days you just feel like you can get going, and other days it just takes a long time to come around, and it's sort of a snowball effect, which is great. Either that or be patient, because you might not feel great for the first 2 hours of the bike, but then something might start coming together. And, like you're saying, it's like, well, yeah, it's trying to understand the body is just a mystery sometimes. And it's, if you are in that gray part where you're like not giving it too much credibility either way, I think that's the way to handle it, and just kind of be like, stay on your point, stay on your game plan, and do what it's taken in the moment to kind of be like, work through it, because that is what it comes down to. That whole race is just to work through it in the moment kind of thing. And you just, you never know. But it is weird how that changes sometimes. You can, that Endure book I was talking about last time, there was one thing in there, and I can't remember if I mentioned this last time, but they were talking about muscle fatigue, and how like some of these ultra runners will go off on these, 2-day journeys or whatever. And they basically said that, your muscle will start at whatever 95% strength, and it'll slowly decrease its ability over time. But they said, I think they said something like, it never goes below 60%. It's just at some point you think that you're cooked, but your muscles are still kind of capable at a 60% level. And that's how do you get the brain to connect with the muscle to actually go through it? Because your brain's always saying, stop, this is not good. But I thought that was fascinating, is like, because I know that a lot of times we feel like that's probably more like 5%. We have nothing left, but you actually probably have more than you think all the time.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, because you got this like huge, and I think it's like so underestimated. Like we have this huge endurance engine, but a lot of times our body subconsciously, or like you said, like the muscles are like, I don't know how much longer I'm gonna be out here, dude. So like, we're not gonna go as fast as you want to go, because if you've been already out here for a day and a half, who's not to say you're asking to make us stay out here for another 5 days? Right. So like, I've got to protect myself. Like, we can't go any faster. And then, but like that's why I think it's I think it's very similar, like a little smaller scale, right? To people who, miles 21 through, 25, you see them just walking with their head down. And they're just done. I got nothing left. I've been cramping so hard. My legs are like rocks. I got nothing. My day is over. Then they come back up and they can hear the finish line. We got a little pep in our step. Oh, we're like running the balls of our feet now. And they go fucking sprinting down the finish line, shoot. Where'd that come from? And that's like, and it is like, some of it is, like it's all mental. Like, it's over. The pain is done. You don't even want to get a last for like the next, like, whatever, 3 minutes. But it's also like your muscles telling your muscles like, hey, I only need you for 30 more seconds. Let's empty the tank. So it is like, so it's just mental, right? It's just what can I get out of you? How can I tell you what I need when I need it? And then get the most out of myself at the right times, right? But also not, assume that my day is over because I don't feel the way I want to feel right now. Like I do, like we feel like we're so in control because we know so many things, right? But that is your body doesn't care. It doesn't. Your body doesn't care. You wake up on race day, it has no idea. It has no clue. Like that, oh, we have a race today, man. We better get it together for the man upstairs or he's going to be pissed that we don't PR today. So, hey, let's bring our best. It doesn't matter. Zero. And so you've got to, I mean, it's so from the chin up, like you have to be measured and metered and like making sure that you're on task, everything that you can do, which again it's all the chin up, and then how you react to how things go and roller coaster ride and transpire from the chin down. And if you're a person that guess what, man, if you're a person that swings, on a polarizing scale every single day with training, best day ever, worst day ever. I can't wait for this race. I'm not sure I'm going to finish. Like, we need to change this. Guess what? On race day, that's who you're going to be. You're going to be the roller coaster guy, up and down, up and down, up and down. Hate it, and you're the same person that's going to finish. You're like, I'm done with these. I'm done. Here you go. $10. The guy that was like, I'm done with this race. He's probably going to sign up Monday morning at noon. Right? You're just like, everything is I'm never doing an Ironman again. Next morning, you're like, you get a QR code from your athlete. It's like, I know I said I was done, but I'm back in, baby. And you're like, can't we just wait a fucking minute? Like, and just like let things smooth out and wait. And because a lot of times things just like, again, your body just works things out. Your head can work things out if you give it time. If you don't, you usually end up like, moving in the wrong direction by making like an abrupt, turn or abrupt judgment call, right, on your pacing and performance strategy. There's like, again, like there's just so much that we can do, I think, that we don't spend enough time doing to prepare for the race, from a mental aspect. And so again, like if you're racing this weekend or you've got races coming up, start to do this stuff on your long rides and your long runs, and how are you going to adapt, and how are you going to persevere, and, trusting yourself and not trusting yourself, and, put yourself in, I'm not saying, bad situations, but, be out there changing tires, knock yourself, knock a bottle out on purpose and go back and get it, start off slow in your run, don't take your water bottle with you and figure out how you got to navigate your pace to come back and get it. Or how you get a pace differently, like all these things, like just figure out that, this people that are resilient respond differently. And people who have been through like really, really hard things in life respond differently in life to people who haven't, because to them, it doesn't register. right? It doesn't register. It's no different than, your friends and family think what you're doing is crazy, but you think it's just everyday normal. Like we normalize things in our life by exposure, like what expose ourselves to, whether it's the people we surround ourselves with, whether it's the, the things that we do, that's just who we are. It's what we like to do. And so that the more you expose yourself to, some of these harder things, these harder conversations in your head and these uncomfortable things, they won't be as uncomfortable on race day. You'll be able to manage. They won't become a surprise, right? It's not you're not predicting a bad race, but you're preparing for all things. And the more you can do that, right, with, changing your tires and making sure your nutrition is nailed down and doing swims with and without a wetsuit, or just doing swims in general, or, like wearing a different pair of run shoes if your run shoes are bad, or like just things that come up, how are you going to adjust? How are you going to turn this blip into just another, it's not going to turn into a loss. It's just going to be an added page or an added chapter in a successful book with a great ending. Right. Just look at it that way. And I think the more we do that, the better opportunity we have to stay the course, to stay even, to stay, stoic in the face of adversity. And again, not just with our legs and our lungs and the environment, but, where it really gets chaotic where it really gets chaotic at times, which is up in our head.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm thinking about as I go into this race again is, I'm trying to convince myself mentally that the run is actually a 50K.
I like that.
It's something. I mean, that's what I'm doing, now, but I could change my mind. But I feel like, if you're thinking you're running a 50K, you look around and go, oh, I'm done? Shit, that's pretty weird.
Yeah. See, it's funny you say that because I do that. Like if I know that I'm going somewhere that's like, maybe 12, 13 hours away, but I know along the way I'm going to stop at X location. Like if I, like in the past, like when I've driven down to Houston for some of our camps, or races, but I know I'm going to stop in Dallas. Dallas is 650 away. Houston's 1150 away. I just put in Houston.
Yeah.
Because it makes and then like all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I'm already here. Because I'm looking at this like hugely long drive, even though I kind of know I'm going to stop. And then when I know I'm about like an hour out from Dallas, I turn off Waze from Houston and redo it. I'm like, oh, 59 minutes, dude. It went from like 4.5 to 59. This is great. And all of a sudden the last hour goes by fast. Like I'm telling you, there's something to those tricks in the head of like, doing stuff like that to keep things in perspective and keep yourself in the right frame of mind that you need. And I think what people need, the things that people need are very different. That might not work for some people, but it might work, it might work for others.
Yeah. Whatever it takes.
It's just a 50K. If you're going to see mile 10, you're like a third of the way there.
Yeah, exactly.
Only a third of the way to go, right? I'm gonna yell at you on the race course too. Like first loop, third of the way there, man. Like, you got 2 more to go.
2 more loops. 2 more loops. Play it smart.
Yeah, I'll get you out of the second lap of the swim team. But right, man, 1 more loop to go. That's it. Almost there.
Yeah. Get back in there.
That's it. Get back in there. We get in there. Make it a 3.6.
All right, man.
Well, as always, we love you guys. We really appreciate you. Best luck to everybody towing the line wherever you are this weekend, regardless of the distance and the sport. We hope you go out there and take control of things from the chin up and let the rest of your body do the work. We love you guys. We appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com, and it's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he's available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. If you need anything from me, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, man. Have a good weekend.
You too, man. Check you later.
All right. See ya.